They laughed when a simple woman stepped up to race, but seconds later, their smiles vanished. What happened next left the entire crowd in shock. It was a sunny afternoon in the small town of Brooksville, where the community fair was in full swing. Families wandered between stalls selling cotton candy, lemonade, and homemade pies. Children laughed as they played games, winning stuffed animals and balloons. In the center of the fairground, a small dirt track had been set up for friendly races. Locals were signing up to compete, each hoping to win bragging rights and a ribbon. Among the onlookers stood a quiet woman named Mary Collins, wearing a simple blue dress. Mary had lived in the town for years, but never drew much attention to herself. She worked part-time at a library and spent her evenings tending her garden. Her gentle smile and modest demeanor made her well-liked, but often underestimated. No one knew that her past held a story far beyond this small town's imagination. As the announcer called for more participants, a group of young men noticed Mary standing nearby. One of them, a tall man named Rick, grinned and waved her over. "Come on, Mary, why don't you give it a try?" he said, clearly teasing. The others laughed, picturing her trying to keep up with their athletic strides. Mary hesitated, shaking her head politely, but their playful persistence continued. "It's just for fun," another man added. "Don't worry, we'll go easy on you." The crowd began to encourage her, clapping and cheering for her to join. Mary finally agreed, walking to the starting line with an almost shy posture. Nobody noticed the quiet confidence in her eyes as she took her position. For them, this was just harmless fun, but for Mary, it was muscle memory. The announcer blew the whistle, and the racers took off. Rick and the others surged forward, their sneakers kicking up dust. Mary started at a steady pace, her movements smooth and controlled. At first, the crowd thought she was lagging behind, holding back. But within seconds, she began to pick up speed, her stride lengthening with precision. Her posture shifted, arms pumping in perfect coordination, feet landing with purpose. The air seemed to cut away for her as she sprinted effortlessly past the others. Gasps erupted from the crowd as she overtook one runner after another. By the halfway mark, Mary was already in the lead. Her calm face contrasted sharply with the red, strained expressions of her opponents. Rick's jaw dropped as Mary sped ahead, her pace unwavering. She didn't just run fast. She ran with the grace and discipline of a trained athlete. Each step was powerful, her body leaning just enough to maximize momentum. She crossed the finish line well before anyone else, barely out of breath. The crowd erupted into cheers, some clapping, others looking utterly stunned. Mary simply smiled and nodded politely, as if she'd just taken a casual walk. Her opponents stumbled across the finish, panting heavily and wiping sweat from their brows. Rick shook his head, trying to process what he had just witnessed. "Mary, where on earth did you learn a run like that?" he asked, still shocked. Her answer would leave them all in disbelief. Mary chuckled softly, brushing a stray hair from her face. "Oh, it's been a while, but I used to run quite a bit," she said vaguely. The curious crowd gathered closer, sensing there was more to the story. Finally, one elderly man in the audience gasped in recognition. "Wait a minute. I've seen you before," he said, pointing at her. "You're Mary Collins, the one who ran in the Olympics years ago." Murmurs spread quickly as people tried to recall the details. She had been a national champion sprinter in her youth, representing her country on the world stage. But after a knee injury and personal loss, she retired quietly, moving to Brooksville to start over. No one here had ever guessed they were living alongside a former Olympia. The young men who had teased her moments earlier now looked both embarrassed and impressed. "Guess we shouldn't have assumed," Rick said, giving a sheepish grin. Mary just laughed, taking no offense. She had nothing to prove. The announcer, now grinning from ear to ear, invited her back for an exhibition race. Children began asking her questions about what it was like to run in a stadium filled with fans. She answered warmly, telling them about training sessions, discipline, and the joy of competition. The fair organizers decided to name the day's race after her in honor of her surprise victory. People began snapping photos with her, treating her like a local celebrity. Mary accepted it all, with quiet humility, happy to have brought joy to the day. Deep down, though, she knew her speed had always been a gift she cherished. Later in the afternoon, the exhibition race was set. This time, Mary would race against the fastest high school sprinters in the county. The teenagers looked confident, but also respectful after hearing her story. When the whistle blew, Mary once again demonstrated her remarkable skill. Her acceleration was explosive, her stride perfectly balanced between power and elegance. The young runners gave it their all, but Mary remained far ahead. She crossed the finish line to thunderous applause, the sound echoing across the fairgrounds. The teenagers shook her hand afterward, thanking her for the honor of racing against her. Mary reminded them to always believe in their abilities and never underestimate others. Her words struck a chord, especially with the younger audience. By evening, Mary was the talk of the fair. Vendors told customers about her Olympic past, and children raced each other pretending to be Mary Collins. Local reporters showed up, eager to cover the unexpected event. When asked why she never mentioned her achievements before, Mary simply smiled. "Sometimes it's nice to just live a quiet life," she said, "but I'll always love the feeling of running. It's a part of who I am." She spoke with the same calm grace that she had shown all day. Her story became an instant inspiration to many in town that IT wasn't just about winning a race. It was about the hidden greatness in ordinary people. Mary had reminded them that every person has a history worth respecting. The next morning, Mary went about her routine as usual. She tended to her garden, watered her flowers, and read quietly on her porch. Yet, the day before had shifted something in the town's perception of her. Neighbors now greeted her with extra warmth and admiration. Some even asked if she would consider coaching the local track team. Though she wasn't sure she wanted to commit, Mary agreed to think about it. She knew that passing on her skills could inspire the next generation. After all, her own journey had begun because someone once believed in her. It felt fitting to give that same encouragement to others. Brooksville had unknowingly rekindled her passion. Months later, the local high school team began winning races they had never dreamed of before. Mary, now their volunteer coach, trained them with patience and precision. She never boasted about her past, but let her teaching speak for itself. The students adored her, learning not only speed but discipline, humility, and perseverance. The fairgrounds where she had first surprised the town became a symbol of inspiration. People often told newcomers the story of the simple woman who outran everyone. Mary would just smile, never seeking the spotlight, but happy to share her love for running.